Family Check, it is right here on Good Morning Kenya. Thank you for staying with us. My name is Vivian Ndegwa, and right now we will be getting into a conversation that I feel is important, and we need to have this talk. We will be talking about addiction. We want to get to understand what exactly an addiction is, you know, the types of addiction, how the situation in Kenya right now surrounding addiction, and how to get help if you know someone or if you're someone who's battling with any kind of addiction. And who better to have in studio with us than a therapist and life coach. Her name is Tracy Korugendo, and she's here to just help us get into this topic. And our main discussion is battling addiction. Good morning.
Good morning, Vivian.
Welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
You're doing well this morning?
Yes, I am.
All right, let's dive straight into this topic. We're talking about battling addiction, but first of all, let's understand what's an addiction.
So I'll explain it in simple terms. I know I'm a mental health expert, so let me just explain it in a very easy way to understand. So it's when someone cannot stop using a substance even when it's harmful to them. So the person gets a strong craving for the substance, and when they start using, they can hardly get themselves to stop. And yet this substance is causing so much harm to them and to their daily functioning. So it's like being stuck in a cycle. Yeah, so basically that's what it means to be an addict.
An addict, you know, to be addicted to something. What are some of the types of addictions that we have?
Addiction comes in two types. There is a substance addiction, like where someone is using substances, but then we also have behavioral addiction. So I'll just give some examples to distinguish the two. So substance addiction is now someone using alcohol, drugs, like mirror, bang, and all these other substances, heroin, and other, even prescription drugs.
And that's the main addiction that most people know of. That's what people talk about when they talk about addiction.
Most people, they talk about the substance
addiction.
But then now we have behavioral addiction, which that's where you find the gaming and social media addiction, workaholics, shopping addiction, name it. There are quite a number of addictions. But even as we discuss, I think I'll just focus on the ones that are here in Kenya or in Africa. Because they differ in different settings. So those are the two types of addictions that exist: substance and behavioral addictions.
What are the most common, you know, addiction problems in Kenya? Now let's narrow it down to here, you know, home. So what are the main common addiction problems here?
I think the biggest is alcohol. Alcohol is our biggest and the leading addiction that we are dealing with. Then it's followed by tobacco, and then it's followed by mirror, then weed, then prescription drugs. So
alcohol, tobacco, marijuana,
mirror,
and then
marijuana. Then prescription drugs in that order, according to the research.
What would you say are some of the causes of addiction, or what factors contribute to one getting to that stage where now they are addicted to a substance?
So the causes, there is not one particular cause. The addicts, people become addicted because of different reasons. So there is the peer pressure for young people. It can be peer pressure because let's say it's cool to do the drugs. So if someone wants to join the cool kids club, we're talking about young people, then they'll end up having to do the things that the cool kids do. So they might end up becoming addicts. Then there's genetics. There are people who are just born in families where addiction is a problem. Your father was an addict, your great-grandfather was an addict, and then you also become an addict. So by belonging to that family, then you have those genetic predisposition. That's what we call them. So you can easily become one.
It could be like genetic.
It can be genetic. Because addiction is actually a disease. And then there's also exposure. Like a lot of us, I know we have alcohol in our homes sometimes as parents, but when we drink, our children are watching how we behave when we drink. So when the children watch the behavior that we display when we drink, they form an association. So if I'm a parent and I drink and maybe I'm usually quiet, and when I drink it turns me into something else. So if I become maybe more outspoken or I'm more kinder to my children, then some of the children will associate that with alcohol. So they'll think when you drink alcohol, you become a nicer person. Yeah. And so what does that do to them? It tempts them. A lot of children actually start trying alcohol from their homes. Yeah, when it's there.
Yeah.
So you leave the alcohol exposed there. When you go out, the child has been seeing you behaving differently. Whenever you drink, they'll be tempted to try it. Yeah, so that's exposure, and in other different ways. Then there's mental health issues, like people who are depressed, they'll look for a way to cope. So what's the easiest thing to do? Some of them will start doing the drugs, and the drugs will numb their feelings, and eventually they'll feel like this is sorting my problem. So you become addicted. And the problem with drugs is that maybe you start with taking one a day and it helps you, but after some time your tolerance level increase, so the one will stop working, and then you'll need more and more and more, even drinking. So those are some of the causes. There are so many. And also unemployment. Unemployment is a big cause of addiction, because now someone has nothing to do, and idleness will lead you to do all these other things that are like engage in addiction, or fall into the wrong groups and end up doing the wrong things. So there is not one main cause of addiction. There are several, and the addicts struggle with different causes or different things that influence them to end up using and getting addicted to the drugs.
Yeah, there are different factors that contribute to that, you know, even with the environment that you're in. Maybe what are some of the symptoms and signs that one should look out for, that when there's this sign, there's this other one, then this person could be now getting into addiction, becoming an addict?
Yeah, I talked about tolerance. Yeah, so like when you go for social drinks with someone and you feel like now they are drinking way too much, because that means if they were drinking maybe 1 or 2 and now they're taking 10 or more, so they start desiring and wanting more. And then also physical appearance. It can either be weight gain or weight loss, or someone stops trying to take care of themselves. They look shabby and they were once neat. Those are also telltale signs. Then they'll have financial issues, because addiction makes you have to have money to constantly supply yourself with this drug or whatever substance it is. So you find that they keep borrowing, or they'll sell their stuff, their personal stuff, then neglecting responsibilities. Let's say if someone is a family person and all the money goes to buying alcohol or buying these substances, so you don't even take care of your home, you don't even take care of your own personal things, missing work, not going to work, because sometimes you end up getting so high. So someone starts being absent and absent and absent, and maybe they were so high and they're hungover and they can't even show up to work. So those are some of the telltale. Mood swings, when they do not have that substance, then they become moody and irritable. Yeah, so there are quite a number of signs to look out for. Yeah, when someone is an addict.
When should one be worried? You know, because maybe someone would say, well, I drink, but I still can manage to do my things and whatnot. So when do we get to a point where, okay, now this is worrying, maybe you should now try seek professional help?
Yeah, well, there are usually like when you drink so much, there are times when someone even loses appetite. They don't eat, they start thinning away. They start thinning away. Those are times someone should be worried. And also I talked about physical appearance. If someone was well kept and they start not taking care of themselves, because we don't have to wait when it's too late, because when it's too late, that's when the body organs are giving, and that's an inner symptom that you cannot see from the surface. So that is already too late. But when we focus on the outside, on what we can see, and then usually when someone is using a substance, they'll change friends. They'll change a circle of their friends. They'll look for new friends who will promote or who will be part of what they're doing. So all those, I think the telltale signs that I've just shared, because by the time they do happen, someone is already deep in. So that's already a cause to worry, because someone has just flipped and taken over a new personality than what you usually know. Yeah.
Yeah. And now how to overcome, how to get over an addiction?
Yeah, when someone is so deep, it can be very difficult. It's not that easy. Let's say if it's genetic, you can imagine it's just in them. So it's not that easy to just get recover from it. I know people who are addicts, and before I know what I knew now, all we could do is just tell them to stop drinking, just tell them to stop going to the bars. But remember, this substance has taken over someone. It's like it's now in control. So how to overcome? Someone might need rehab. Yeah, from my experience, the talking doesn't really work. And most times they don't even know they have a problem. Yeah, they think you guys are the ones with the problem. You don't want them to have fun. You don't want them to enjoy. So rehab helps, because when they go to rehab, there are steps that they use to help. They don't actually, for some of them, they don't instantly cut off the substance. They do it in phases. So if it's past that point, then rehab can help. Then there's maybe community support, where there's maybe they form groups and create awareness and early interventions. We have NECADA here in Kenya. It's the one in charge of alcohol and abuse prevention. They've provided a guideline of prevention of substance abuse for parents. So all those come in handy, and awareness, because there's a lot of stigma as well. Yeah, there's a lot of stigma, and you have people who are actually addicts, and they operate, they go to work, and they are drunk, they smell of alcohol, but they're able to function on a daily. But they just need to keep refilling, but they are operating. Yeah, they are able to operate. Yeah, so just creating that awareness, offering support for friends that are struggling, and finding out if they are aware that they do have a problem, and highlighting it. Yeah, and highlighting it.
Yeah, is it possible for one to be able to just control their addiction, maybe by themselves in a way, before getting to the point where, okay, now this person needs rehab, or this person needs some kind of intervention from a professional? Is it possible, or it's quite difficult when it's gotten to the stage where it's now an addiction?
I think it depends on the cause. If someone is drinking because of a mental health related issue, they would have to address the mental health related issue. If it's depression, they'll have to deal with the depression and then stop. So I think it's very difficult, because if they could, they would have stopped anyways. But now we are talking about they're already addicts, they're in there. It's very difficult. Because remember, this substance makes them feel a certain type of way, and they keep craving it, and they keep craving it. Yeah.
So one saying that I can be able to control it, I think I'll just work my way around it, could be?
Yeah, actually most of them say, I don't do too much, I can be able to stop. They convince themselves that they can, and that's why we have a high rate of relapse. Yeah, the fact that they go and relapse, they've not addressed the root cause of what is causing them to be addicts. Yeah, but it's a very difficult thing to deal with. Yeah, and it's claiming a lot of lives, because the initiation age, you'll be surprised, for alcohol is 6 years.
I saw that and I was like, 6-year-olds?
Yeah, 6 years.
There's a 6-year-old somewhere who's tried alcohol.
Yes. Yeah, 6 years.
Wow, that's alarming.
Yeah. So even when a child, there are people, it's like a joke when a child is cranky and crying when they're still young, and you're like, give them some little alcohol, they'll sleep. But you see, when you do that to a child, they make a conscious connection to it, and it also ignites their taste buds. So this thing should not be taken lightly. So it's not that easy because they do it for some time. Someone doesn't wake up and they become an addict. It's in stages. So they start with 1 bottle, then 2, 3, 4. So by the time they're addicts, you can imagine trying to undo all that by themselves. Yeah.
And it's always someone trying to chase a high.
Yes.
You're used to this high, now your body has gotten used to it. You want to chase another kind, some other kind of high. So, well, yeah. But now, let's try look at ways to prevent this. You know, before you even get deep into the recovery of someone who's addicted and even the treatment options for them, how do we prevent it? For those who have not yet gotten to that point, for those who have not yet gotten into maybe using substance, these types of substances, what's the best way to go about preventing it? What's the preventative measures that we would say one could put in place that would avoid us getting to a point where now we need to start working on the recovery of this person?
Yeah, early interventions definitely would really help, but I don't know if we can completely prevent it because of the different causes that I'm talking about. So we would have to address the root cause. So some of the ways we can prevent is now, like when psychoeducating the young people, because it's alarming at how much young people are using these drugs. You know, there's also an online market for these drugs on the dark web, and they purchase the drugs using cryptocurrency, so you can't even track, and they do deliver the drugs, and the changing trends in the drugs. You know, you've heard the weed is being made in cookies, in cakes. So it's something very difficult to prevent, but well, we have to do, of course, the best that we can. Like now, early interventions, like now creating awareness in schools, showing these kids what drugs look like, because some of them look like candy. Some of them actually do look like candy. So you find some innocent kids taking these pills thinking it's candy. I've had a client who said she went for a class party and there was popcorn and it had weed. And she did not know, and it was her first time. In popcorn, the trends keep changing, and these people are very creative with it. So early intervention, educating kids and telling them what it looks like, showing them what it looks like, because we say the initiation is 6 years. But you'll be surprised to see that a 13-year-old doesn't even know what weed looks like. They don't know what the drugs look like. So also we talked about prescription drugs, having very strict measures when you're prescribing those drugs. I know that they don't just give them at the counter, but then I wonder, how do addicts get them? Because it's a big problem. So there are black markets out there, maybe people selling to them, because these have to be prescribed by a doctor, but how are they able to get them without the prescription? So policies and legislations that are very strict and strengthened when it comes to who's distributing these drugs, even the alcohol, who's selling, and because alcohol it's accessible everywhere. It's everywhere, and I've seen there are parents who comfortably send kids to go buy alcohol. So like the person who sells the alcohol, there should be strict rules where you cannot even sell it to a child, even if they're buying for their parent, you just cannot give. So that's where policies and legislations come in. And a lot of this just needs psycho-education and awareness, and maybe addressing the stigma. I believe that those that are addicts but want to come out, the ones that I told you, like they're able to operate, because there are times you can't tell if someone is on drugs or not. So just addressing the stigma, so that when that person needs help, they are able to come out and comfortably seek the help. You
know, I'm trying to think of, you know, maybe what's the best time for parents and guardians to start that conversation of drugs, that drugs conversation with their children. What's the best time to bring that up?
Now we have the initiation age at 6 years of age, so like as early as then, even before maybe the 6 years. I didn't know, from the research I saw 6 years, but as a psychologist, I'm very curious, this 6-year-old, how did they have access to this alcohol? Like, were they given, did they take it? So if it's a home setup, then parents need to be aware when they do have the alcohol. We are not judging parents. Maybe there are those that prefer to just have it at home rather than go to the bar and just have a drink at home. But then if you are going to overindulge, then do it away from the children, or keep the alcohol somewhere locked away, just the same way we keep the medicine. When we have medicine at home, we put it uko juu, like on top of the fridge. So the same thing, the same caution that we take when it comes to just the medicine at home is the same caution that we should take in having alcohol in home. So I think as early as you can.
And these conversations need to be had.
Oh yes, by both parents, in schools. They need to have days when they are just having talks about drugs, and kids need to know what these drugs look like. They need to know what these drugs look like. Yeah, because they don't. So if it's like candy, then how will they know that it's actually a drug? Or even not taking these candy-like things from other kids, because the trends are really changing. There's also a cough syrup. There's a cough syrup that kids use to get a high.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, which is actually medicine. I don't remember the name, but it's a cough syrup.
Yeah, we don't even need to mention it, because maybe someone may decide, okay, this will be my drug, I'll try it.
Yeah, then the online market, the dark web, the dark web, you don't access it the normal way that you access normal web. So there are some links that parents need to keep checking on their kids, and if your child is logging into dark web, then that's a question like, what are they trying to get there? Because on the dark web, we also talked about behavior addiction, pornography. That's where the kids have access to all these activities.
Yeah. What's the overall impact of addiction?
Oh wow.
Yeah.
The impact is so huge, because here in Kenya, the vulnerable group is 25 to 35 years of age. That's someone's most prime years. Those are people who have just come out of school. So you can imagine, if they're wasting their prime years, we are losing out on very good skills. We're losing out on future leaders. We're losing out on future parents. So those are some of the impacts. And also financially, it takes a toll. And then family, it affects a lot of families. We have a lot of parents losing their children to drug abuse. Yeah, so the biggest impact is on family, because no parent wants to watch their child become an addict. It erodes so much away from this child, their potential and everything. So it affects family, it affects the community, because now if we have addicts, then they're being an influence to others, even to the ones that have not started using. So just having this problem takes so much away from not just family, but community and the future of the addict themselves.
Let's look at the recovery. You know, we've touched on the signs, the symptoms. You've realized, okay, I have these signs. It's time for me to, get to see a professional, in this area. What's the first step to take? Now, lead me through that recovery process. Someone has realized they are an addict. They've seen all these other signs that we've talked about. Now they know we need help. Where should one start?
Yeah, well, I would say rehab, but now I know that rehab costs, like you'll have to pay, and also with this USAID freezing of funds, because one of the biggest challenges we have is the limited resources and funding for rehabilitation centers. There are not that many. There are not that many. And for someone to be able to take their person to rehab, it's a bit costly. And even hospitals. We also don't have many hospitals that are addressing mental health issues. So the first step, of course, would be to take this person to rehab, because we've talked about the family intervening. It never works. All they'll do is hide and continue doing it. Maybe for someone who's not so deep, the family intervention might work. But now, if there is no money, then what? Then what intervention, depending on how deep someone is, and also what type of addiction they're having. I believe behavior can be addressed not easier, it can also be challenged, but drug is the main one. Drug is the one that is very difficult. So rehab will help, family intervention might help, community support for the addicts, like forming a group and just getting one voluntary person to offer these people support in a community kind of setup, because that will create awareness to the others in that community that you can actually get help. Or even making it part of normal healthcare, where someone can just go to the hospital and they're being treated for addiction. Yeah, and NHIF can pay for it. Yeah.
It's SHA nowadays.
Or SHA, or SHA, or she. Yeah, I'm still stuck on NHIF.
But by the way, we didn't talk about how it is diagnosed. How is the diagnosis done?
Okay, when we are doing diagnosis, we usually, of course, there is therapy. When you do therapy and you're able to, if it's behavior, there are some tools that you usually use in counseling to diagnose certain behavior. So if it's a mental health related issue, then we'll diagnose the mental health issue first, and then now we see how it has led to addiction. But most times, like, the signs are visible. Yeah, so by the time someone is being taken to rehab, then they're going for treatment. It's not that we're sitting down to diagnose you. They already are in so deep that it's already a disease. Like going to the hospital and you have like measles. Yeah, it's evident. It's the evidence. Someone can tell that this is what you. Of course, they'll do tests to maybe narrow it down. So even for addiction, that someone can. By the time a family member or a parent is taking their child, then the symptoms are there to see. So it's not like a disease where you have to sit down and start trying to get to the bottom of it and see if they're actually having addiction or not. Yeah. Okay.
Now, in this, in the steps to recovery, or even the road to one's recovery, from addiction, we hear of cases where maybe a family member is addicted to this substance, let's say alcohol, that they're taken to rehab, but they end up maybe running away from there and all that. So I think maybe if you can talk about the importance of acceptance, from the person who's having this addiction, not me as a family member or as a friend who's been able to pick that up and maybe advise you to go to rehab. What's the importance of that acceptance from the person, that self-acceptance?
Self-acceptance is the beginning of change, because knowing that you do have a problem and accepting it, then that will motivate you to desire to change. I empathize with the families that have to forcefully do it because they are trying to save this person from what they cannot see. But it's always important to reach a place where the person or the addict is willing to give into the treatment and seek support, because when you forcefully take them, the levels and chances of relapse are very high. But also, it's not that bad because they will have that awareness now that I can actually get help. And sometimes some people do it forcefully, and when they go there and meet others on the road to recovery, they are encouraged. So awareness for an addict, it's really, really difficult. So I guess that's why some family members take those measures. But if someone is doing therapy and they're using the drug, or they've become addicts because of an underlying issue, therapy in itself can be able to help them create the awareness that they need, and then they can go to rehab without having to be forced. So awareness plays a key role in determining the recovery of this person, because they will put in the work, and they're the ones that know that they need to change and stop. Because they need to do the work. They need to put in the work. Everyone else might want for you to get better, but with addiction it's all up to you. It's actually the first step to recovery. Unfortunately, it's up to you. You have to do the work. All right. Let's look at the treatment options. I know we've touched on some of them. We've talked about rehab as a way of, getting to recovery, or a treatment option. You've talked about social, that community support or social support. Maybe what are some other treatment options that you can get into? For some people might need to be admitted, depending on the level of how far they've gone into the addiction. But I know that because of how grand and severe addiction is, the treatment options are not that many. They're not that many. It's either therapy now to address the causes that we talked about, and then someone can find their way, and now rehab. Those are the only two that I have to insist on, that I have to emphasize, that I have to emphasize. I'm not very sure about other treatment options at this moment. Yeah, because
those are the main ones.
Yeah, those are the main ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, if someone cannot recover on their own, and then there's no medication for addiction, it's more of if it's behavior, then it's a behavior that needs to be stopped. It's a substance, then it's a substance that needs to be stopped. So the easiest way is to get the root cause of why this person is using, and then be able to address it. Yeah.
What role do individuals play in the lives of people who are going through an addiction problem? Say, in the family setup, even in, as a colleague, if one of your colleagues is going through that, what role do people play in their lives, or what role do they need to play in their lives?
I think a lot of addicts have enablers. A lot of addicts have enablers. They have people who enable the behavior, because addiction can make you very manipulative. Yeah, it makes you very manipulative. So when we give it to the demands of the addict, especially when they're trying to look for money to buy the whatever they're addicted to, they'll be very manipulative, and they'll do anything, and they'll use threats, and you'll end up giving in. By doing that, you're enabling. You're enabling the behavior. So you have to think of that person. If you really love them, you have to cut them off. The tough love. You have to apply the tough love. Then for friends, it's just to create awareness to this person. If we are out drinking, some people drink socially because they're in a group of friends. I always say, if we're out drinking and your friend is having way too many, you can always cut it off and say, okay, let's go home, it's time to go home. That's how you can show your friend support, by not letting them overindulge, because the more they overindulge, and we tend to hang out with the similar people a lot of times, so the more they indulge in this substance, the more their tolerance level goes high. So if it's a friend, by just ending the night way early, I know you cannot control people, especially when they're adults, but you do the best that you can. If you end the night and it's just the two of you, then they'll have no choice, even if they don't go home, but you'll have played your part. Yeah, then family, just like I've said about family having the alcohol at home, parents, we need to be very keen and cautious about the way we express ourselves when we've taken alcohol or when we get drunk. I think we need to protect our children from seeing certain versions of ourselves, especially when we are under the influence. So every person has a role to play, or even psychoeducating your friend about the dangers or what it could lead to. Because a lot of people, when they start drinking, they waste money. But if it's our friends and we are going out with them and they're spending so much, we praise them, right? Yeah, we praise them, we call them sponsors, and they're spending and spending, and we're enjoying, and we are drinking as much as we can, but we don't take time to think about this person. Yeah, so we are enabling.